I had always believed my life was ordinary. Work, home, occasional calls from distant relatives, a few dinners with friends, predictable and safe. I liked predictability. It gave me comfort. But that Friday evening, everything changed. The sun had barely started to dip behind the buildings outside my window when I heard a soft, insistent knock at my door. It was unusual. I rarely had visitors at this hour, especially strangers. Hesitant, I approached the door, peeking through the peephole. A man stood there, mid-30s, unassuming, dressed in a dark jacket and jeans. Yet his gaze was piercing, focused directly on me through the small lens. My stomach turned. Something about his calmness was unnerving. Before I could react, the knocking came again, firmer this time. A voice called out, "Excuse me, I need to speak with you." I froze. Who could this be? I had no deliveries scheduled, no friends in town. With cautious steps, I opened the door just slightly. "Hi," he said, his voice calm, almost eerily so. "I hope I'm not intruding. I need to talk to you about something important." "Do I know you?" I asked, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. He shook his head. "No, not yet. But I know about you." A cold shiver ran down my spine. My hands gripped the doorknob tighter. "Know about me? What is he talking about?" "Come in," I said after a pause, curiosity outweighing fear. He stepped in, glanced around the apartment briefly, then turned to me. His eyes locked onto mine. And for a moment I felt exposed, like someone had peered into my private life without permission. From his pocket, he produced a small envelope and handed it to me. "You should read this," he said simply. I hesitated, but the unease compelled me to open it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed neatly. "I know about your past, your secrets, and the choices you've buried. You're in danger, and it's closer than you think. Ignore this at your own risk." My heart pounded. I tried to laugh, a nervous, shaky sound. This has to be a joke." The man remained calm. "I assure you it's not. You need to listen carefully. Someone has been watching you. They know about everything you've tried to hide. You must act before it's too late." I wanted to argue, to slam the door and pretend this hadn't happened. But something about the urgency in his voice made me pause. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "My name isn't important," he said. "What matters is what you do next. Your life as you know it is about to change." Before I could respond, he left. Just like that. I stood there in silence, staring at the door, the envelope trembling in my hands. That night, sleep eluded me. Every sound, the creak of my apartment, the distant hum of traffic, felt amplified. I reread the note several times, hoping for a rational explanation, some logical reason. But each reading only heightened the sense of dread. By morning, the anxiety hadn't faded. I realized I needed answers. Who was this man? How did he know about me? What danger was he referring to? The following days were tense. I couldn't focus at work. My mind constantly replayed the stranger's visit. I noticed shadows moving in corners of my vision. Unfamiliar cars outside my building. Phone calls from unknown numbers that went silent when I answered. My life, once predictable, was unraveling. Then one afternoon, an email arrived. The sender was anonymous. Subject line, "Time is running out." Inside, detailed information about my past mistakes. The people I had trusted and betrayed was listed. Everything was accurate, even events I had never shared with anyone. My pulse raced as I scrolled through the list. Panic gave way to determination. I couldn't ignore this. I had to confront it head on. I started tracing the origins of the email, the phone numbers, the strange vehicles. But it was like chasing shadows. Every lead dissolved into nothing. It became clear I wasn't just being warned. I was being watched. Every move, every choice, meticulously tracked. Someone had planned this for months, maybe years. And now they were ready to act. Then came the second visit. Same time, same knock. My heart pounded as I approached the door. The stranger stood there again, calm, composed. "Did you read the email?" he asked. "Yes," I whispered. "Good. Now you understand the urgency," he said. "There's no turning back. You need to prepare, and be careful about whom you trust." I nodded, but fear clawed at me. "Why me?" "You were in the wrong place at the wrong time," he replied. "But it's also your choices that brought this upon you. You need to fix them before it's too late." And just like that, he left. Again, I was alone with a growing storm of fear and confusion. The next few days became a blur. I double-checked locks, changed routines, avoided calls, and even considered leaving town. But the question that haunted me most was, what exactly was coming? And could I survive it? Little did I know this was just the beginning. The stranger's appearance was a catalyst. My past, my secrets, my choices. They were all converging into something unavoidable. And the person behind it all was closer than I had ever imagined. The days after the stranger's visit felt like a waking nightmare. Every familiar sound seemed threatening, every shadow a potential threat. I started noticing small things that had gone unnoticed before. A car parked for hours across the street, strangers lingering near my building, phones that rang but displayed no number. My paranoia was real yet logical enough to keep me alert. I tried to rationalize what was happening. Maybe it's a scam, I thought. Someone trying to frighten me for money. Or revenge. But the level of detail in the emails, the knowledge of my personal history, and the precise timing of the stranger's visits pointed to something far more dangerous. One evening, as I sat reviewing my security footage, hoping for a clue, I noticed a figure lingering near my building. At the exact time the stranger had first knocked. The person wasn't clear, but the movements were deliberate, almost calculated. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Someone had been observing me long before the stranger's envelope arrived. The stranger returned the following morning. This time he didn't knock. He simply appeared in the lobby of my building, waiting as if he had been expecting me. "Are you ready to talk?" he asked, a faint hint of urgency in his voice. I swallowed hard and nodded. "I don't understand any of this." "Who are you, really?" He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "I'm someone who can help you, but only if you trust me. You've made mistakes, decisions that put you in danger, and now someone wants to make you pay for them." I tried to ask for specifics, but he shook his head. "Not yet. First, you need to understand what you're up against." He handed me a folder. Inside were documents, photographs, even scanned notes from years ago, things I had never shared with anyone. Each page revealed secrets I had buried, relationships I had ended quietly, moments I had hoped were forgotten. It was both horrifying and strangely validating to see my life laid bare in such detail. "They know everything," he said. "Every choice you've made, every trust you've given and broken, every secret you thought was safe. And they're planning to use it against you." My head spun. I had never imagined my past could be weaponized in such a calculated way. Every misstep, every moment of carelessness, seemed magnified, turned into a potential threat. "Why me?" I asked again, desperation creeping into my voice. "Because you're connected to someone who has what they want," he replied cryptically. "And that connection made you a target. But more importantly, your response now will determine if you survive this." The stranger began explaining how to protect myself. He suggested changing routines, monitoring communications, and gathering allies cautiously. But even as he spoke, I realized the deeper truth. I couldn't escape my past. The choices I had made, the people I had trusted, and the secrets I had kept, they were all part of a puzzle I had to solve. Over the next few days, I followed his instructions carefully. I avoided social media, altered my routines, and kept track of everyone who contacted me. The tension was unbearable, yet I could not let fear paralyze me. Then, an anonymous message arrived on my phone. "We are closer than you think. You cannot hide forever." The stranger looked at me when I showed him. "This is just the beginning. You need to face what's coming." I had no choice but to confront my past. I reached out to people I had wronged, revisited old mistakes, and tried to anticipate how someone could use them against me. Each revelation was painful, forcing me to acknowledge my failures. Yet I began to see patterns, connections that explained why I had become a target. It became clear that the danger wasn't random. It was calculated, methodical. Someone had been observing me for years, learning my habits, my weaknesses, my regrets. And now they were ready to act. The stranger warned me. They will test you. They will try to manipulate your emotions, push you to make mistakes. Do not respond impulsively. Every reaction they provoke is part of their plan. And so I prepared. Each day became a balancing act of vigilance and survival. I couldn't trust anyone fully, not even those closest to me. Every phone call, every knock at the door, every unexpected email was a potential threat. Then one night, as I was reviewing old photographs and documents from the folder, I noticed something I had missed before, a series of seemingly random numbers scribbled on the back of an envelope. At first they seemed meaningless, but the stranger's visit had taught me to pay attention to details. I realized these numbers were dates, each corresponding to a significant event in my past. It dawned on me that someone was orchestrating this meticulously, using my history as a blueprint. They weren't just threatening me, they were narrating my life, manipulating it piece by piece. The realization hit me like a wave. My past was not just a memory, it was a weapon. And unless I acted strategically, it could destroy me completely. The days grew heavier as I tried to make sense of the mysterious numbers I had discovered. Each date, each detail from my past now felt like a trap meticulously laid out. I began cross-referencing them with the events in the folder the stranger had given me. Birthdays, anniversaries, job changes, forgotten arguments, all were linked, forming a map I couldn't ignore. Sleep became impossible. I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, the numbers and dates spinning in my mind. The stranger insisted I stay alert but calm to avoid making rash decisions. Easier said than done. The world had transformed overnight from ordinary to a labyrinth of shadows, secrets and threats. One evening, while examining the photographs again, I noticed something that had eluded me before. In the background of one old photo taken years ago at a small gathering was a man standing quietly, almost blending into the crowd. I didn't recognize him immediately, but there was something familiar about his posture, the way he stood, as if observing everyone with silent intent. I showed the photo to the stranger. "Yes," he said quietly. "He is one of them. Not the main threat, but a significant player in this. He has been watching you for a long time, carefully, silently. That man is why you are here now." "Who is he?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You will find out soon enough," the stranger replied. "But first, you need to understand your role in this game. They are not just external threats. They are connected to your past decisions, your relationships, your mistakes. Every person you ever trusted or betrayed could be a piece of their strategy." I felt the weight of those words. Every friendship I had ended abruptly. Every colleague I had disappointed. Every secret I had kept. It was as if my past had come alive, twisting itself into a weapon aimed at me. I realized then that survival would not only require caution but also reflection, understanding, and strategy. The stranger guided me through the next steps cautiously. He taught me how to monitor communications without drawing attention, how to identify patterns in seemingly random events, and most importantly, how to trust my instincts. Despite his guidance, fear remained my constant companion. Every noise outside my apartment, every unfamiliar face, every email from an unknown source sent my mind spiraling. Yet slowly, I began noticing patterns. The threats weren't random. They were calculated to provoke emotional reactions, to destabilize me, to push me toward mistakes. Then came the breakthrough. A message arrived, not on my phone, not in my email, but physically, left in a book I had recently borrowed from the library. Inside, a note written in neat, deliberate handwriting read, "Check the places you least expect. The answers lie where your life began." I felt a chill. The message hinted at something deeply personal, something I had left behind years ago. The stranger encouraged me to investigate carefully. I revisited my old neighborhood the next day, a place I hadn't set foot in for over a decade. The streets were familiar, yet changed, shadows stretching differently in the late afternoon sun. As I walked past the houses I had grown up around, memories flooded back, some joyful, some painful. Each memory seemed linked to the threats now surrounding me. Finally, I reached a small, abandoned community center at the edge of the neighborhood. It had been a place where I had spent countless hours as a teenager, attending workshops and gatherings. Now it stood silent, a hollow shell of the past. Inside, I discovered a small hidden compartment beneath a dusty floorboard. In it were envelopes, photographs, and notes, documents I hadn't seen in years. And among them, a series of letters addressed to me, written in a hand I vaguely recognized. "These must be from them," I whispered to myself. "From the people orchestrating this." The stranger, who had followed me discreetly, confirmed my suspicion. "Yes, they're sending you pieces of the puzzle. Each item, each letter is a step closer to understanding their plan. And your part in it." I felt both fear and curiosity. Each letter revealed truths I had buried, secrets I had thought were forgotten, connections I had overlooked. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The main threat wasn't random. It was someone intimately connected to me, someone I had encountered long ago, whose presence in my life had seemed benign at the time but was now the foundation of a meticulously planned threat. Returning to my apartment that night, I realized that survival meant confronting these truths. I couldn't hide from the past anymore. Each choice I had made, each relationship I had formed or broken, was now a piece of a larger puzzle. And to survive, I had to understand the entire picture. The stranger spoke quietly but firmly. You've begun to see it? But the real challenge is ahead. You must face the person behind this before they act completely. They will test your resolve, your intelligence, your emotions. They will try to manipulate you into mistakes. But if you can anticipate their moves, you might just survive. And so I prepared. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. Each night became a study in patience, observation, and strategy. The past was no longer behind me, it was the battlefield. And the stranger's cryptic warnings had become my guide through this intricate maze. But little did I know, the person orchestrating all this was closer than I could imagine, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The shadows of my past had come alive, and the game of survival had only just begun. The tension in my life had become almost unbearable. Every sound, every shadow, every unexpected knock reminded me that someone was watching, waiting, calculating. The stranger's guidance had kept me alive so far, but the closer I got to the truth, the more dangerous everything became. After discovering the letters and hidden clues from my past, I realized that the threat wasn't just abstract. It was someone I had encountered years ago, someone whose presence I had overlooked, whose interactions had seemed inconsequential at the time, but were now pieces of a meticulously planned puzzle. That evening I decided to visit one of the locations mentioned in the letters, a small cafe, where I had spent countless hours as a student. The stranger insisted on coming along, staying in the background, letting me lead the way. As I entered the cafe, memories flooded back, the laughter of friends, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, the feeling of carefree days. But beneath those memories, a sense of dread lingered. The stranger had warned me. They will choose the place you least expect, but it will always be familiar. I scanned the room, looking for anyone unusual. Most people were absorbed in their conversations, their laptops, or their phones. Then, at a table near the window, I saw him, an ordinary-looking man with a calm demeanor, reading a newspaper. But something about him was unsettling. The way he glanced up occasionally, the way his eyes seemed to track my every movement. It was deliberate, calculated. "Is that him?" I whispered to the stranger, who had quietly stood behind me. He nodded. "Possibly. Observe carefully. Don't act yet. Let's see what he does." I sat at a table across the room, pretending to read, but my eyes never left him. Minutes passed. He didn't approach, didn't speak. Yet the intensity of his gaze made my stomach twist. Every instinct told me he was the one orchestrating the threats, the one behind the letters and emails. Then, unexpectedly, he stood and left the cafe, glancing back once, directly at me. My heart pounded. I wanted to follow, to confront, but the stranger grabbed my arm gently. "Not yet," he said. "You're not ready. Following him now could be dangerous. He wants you to react. That's how he manipulates. Patience is your ally." We waited outside, shadows lengthening as evening approached. I watched him disappear down the street, and something in his movements, in the way he carried himself, told me he knew I was tracking him. The game had escalated. Back at my apartment, I pored over the notes, the letters, the photographs. Patterns emerged, dates, locations, people I had once trusted. The stranger explained, "Every action he takes is designed to provoke a response. He's testing you, pushing you to make mistakes. But the clues are here. Follow them carefully. He underestimates you." Despite the fear gnawing at me, I felt a strange sense of resolve. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was part of the game now. And every clue, every encounter, was a move I had to consider carefully. The next day, an anonymous package arrived at my door. Inside was a single photograph, a picture of my childhood home, taken from the street, with a date scribbled in the corner, the day I had moved out. On the back, in the same neat handwriting as the letters, was a message. "Do you remember where it all began? Go there, face the past." I felt a chill. The stranger looked at me with a grave expression. "This is it. They want you to confront your past directly. The first step toward understanding the full scope of this threat." I knew he was right. I had to go back, to face the memories, the mistakes, and the people I had left behind. Only then could I hope to uncover the identity of the mastermind and understand why. I had become the target. That night I barely slept. I packed a bag, preparing for the journey into my past. The stranger instructed me on precautions, emphasizing stealth and awareness. Trust no one fully, he warned. Even familiar faces can be part of the plan. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt the weight of every decision I had ever made pressing down on me. The stranger's cryptic advice echoed in my mind. They're closer than you think, and they're counting on your mistakes. The next morning, I set out from my childhood neighborhood. The streets were eerily quiet, memories flooding back with each step. Houses I had known, friends I had forgotten, and the places where my life had been shaped all came into view. But beneath the nostalgia, a sense of danger lingered. At the edge of the neighborhood, I paused near the old community park. Something caught my eye, a figure standing in the distance, partially hidden by trees. Familiar yet unfamiliar. I couldn't make out the features, but the posture, the way the person observed, sent a shiver down my spine. I realized then that the mastermind wasn't just someone from my past. They were someone who had been carefully orchestrating this for years, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now that moment was approaching. The stranger placed a hand on my shoulder. This is where it begins. Face the past, but remain vigilant. One wrong move and everything changes. I nodded, my heart pounding. The game was no longer abstract, it was real, and the person behind it all was closer than I had ever imagined. The neighborhood felt different from what I remembered. The streets, once familiar, now carried a strange air of tension, as if the past itself were watching me. Every corner, every abandoned house, every tree seemed to whisper warnings I could barely comprehend. I clutched the folder of letters and photographs, my fingers trembling, heart racing. The stranger had insisted I remain alert, and I realized I had no choice but to obey. I walked slowly toward my childhood home, now an empty house with faded paint and a creaking gate. Memories came rushing back, family gatherings, arguments, laughter, secrets whispered behind closed doors. I paused at the front porch, noticing scuff marks on the steps and remnants of a garden I had helped plant years ago. It all seemed frozen in time. Then I saw him, standing near the edge of the property line, partially hidden in shadow. Was the figure I had glimpsed before in the park? My breath caught. There was something familiar about him, a presence I had known, though I couldn't place it immediately. The stranger who had accompanied me discreetly whispered, "This is the moment. Observe but don't react. Let him reveal himself." I approached cautiously, my mind racing. Who is he? Why now? Each step felt heavy, each heartbeat echoing in my ears. The figure stepped forward into the light. My heart nearly stopped. It was someone I had known from my teenage years, a man who had been a part of my life, a friend I had trusted. But now his gaze was cold, calculated, almost predatory. The familiarity clashed with the fear gnawing at my chest. "You finally came back," he said, voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of menace. "I knew you would." I froze. How did he know I would come here, and why? I don't understand," I stammered. "Why are you doing this?" He smiled faintly, a chilling expression. "It's not personal." Well, not entirely. It's about choices, consequences, and lessons learned the hard way. You made decisions that affected me, and now it's time to pay attention. Time to understand what those decisions cost you, and others. I felt a surge of anger, fear, and confusion. Memories of past betrayals, missteps, and moments of carelessness flashed through my mind. Every regret, every hidden secret, every discarded friendship, it all seemed to converge in this moment. The stranger who had guided me stood a few steps behind, silent but vigilant. He had prepared me for this confrontation. But nothing could have readied me for the intensity of facing someone I had known, someone who had once been part of my life, now turned into an architect of fear and manipulation. "You've grown," the man continued, his eyes scanning me as if measuring my reactions. "But growth doesn't erase the past. It only hides it, temporarily. And temporary is all you have now." I realized then that surviving this wouldn't just require caution. It would demand courage, intelligence, and strategy. Every word, The man stepped closer, producing another envelope from his jacket. "This contains information you need. Read it carefully and understand what's at stake. Your past, present, and future are intertwined in ways you've never imagined." I took the envelope, hands shaking. Inside were letters, photographs, and documents detailing not only my past mistakes, but also connections I'd never recognized, people I had overlooked, choices I had thought insignificant. They were all part of a larger, calculated plan. "This is why you came here," he said. "To see, to feel, to realize the depth of what you've been part of. Only then can you hope to survive." I looked at him, a mixture of fear and determination coursing through me. "What do you want from me?" "Awareness," he replied simply. "And action. You can't hide anymore. You can't run. You must confront your past, understand the connections, and make the right choices now. Every hesitation costs you. Every mistake can be fatal." The gravity of his words settled heavily on me. I had been running through life, believing my past was buried, my mistakes forgotten. But now the past was alive, orchestrated against me, and I was at the center of a game far bigger than I had ever imagined. The stranger who had guided me whispered in my ear, "This is the first step. Learn, adapt, survive. The game has just begun, and he will test you in ways you cannot predict." I nodded, feeling both fear and resolve. I understood now. Survival meant more than hiding or avoiding. It meant confronting the truth, facing the consequences, and anticipating every move the antagonist could make. As I left my childhood home, the sun dipping below the horizon, I felt the weight of the journey ahead. The man from my past would not be the only challenge, I realized. The entire network of people, connections, and secrets, everything orchestrated for this moment, was still unfolding. But for the first time, I felt a spark of control. Knowledge was power, and understanding the enemy, their methods, and my own past mistakes might give me a fighting chance. The stranger fell back, letting me lead. Tonight, reflect. Tomorrow, we begin planning. The closer you get to understanding him, the more dangerous it becomes. Stay vigilant. I returned to my apartment, mind racing, heart pounding. Every letter, every photograph, every memory from the past now held meaning. The shadow of the man I had trusted, now turned adversary, loomed large over my life. And the game, the dangerous, life-altering game, had truly begun. Returning to my apartment after confronting the man from my past, I felt a mixture of relief and dread. Relief that I had faced him. Dread, because I now understood the scale of what I was up against. The stranger who had guided me remained calm, observing silently, as if calculating every step I would take next. "You did well today," he said quietly. "But this was only the beginning. What you've seen is a glimpse. His reach is far beyond what you understand." I sat down heavily, the envelope from the antagonist still in my hands. The letters and photographs revealed connections I had never noticed. Friends from years ago, co-workers, even casual acquaintances, they all seemed to have played a role, willingly or not, in the antagonist's plan. The scale was staggering. The stranger began explaining what he knew. "He's been planning this for years. Every move he's made, every note, every email, every photograph, it's designed to manipulate you, to push you toward mistakes. He knows your weaknesses, your fears, your habits, and now he's ready to escalate." I listened, absorbing every word. My mind raced. How could one person orchestrate something so complex? And why me? "The goal," the stranger continued, "is control. Not just over your actions, but over your psyche. He wants you to doubt yourself, to question your memory, your judgment, even your relationships. Every reaction he provokes is part of his strategy." I realized then that survival wouldn't just require vigilance, it would require strategy, patience, and mental fortitude. I couldn't respond impulsively. I had to anticipate his moves, predict his plans, and stay several steps ahead. The next day, I began to implement the stranger's guidance. I monitored my communications carefully, documented every interaction, and started creating a timeline of events, linking the clues, letters, and photographs to real-life occurrences. Each pattern revealed more about the antagonist's methodical approach. Then came a message that chilled me to the bone. A video file arrived anonymously. I hesitated, knowing that opening it could provoke a trap. But curiosity and the need for information won. I clicked. The video showed a familiar location, the library where I had spent countless hours in my youth. And in the corner of the frame, a figure stood, unmistakably him, the man from my past. He spoke, but not directly to me. The words were a message. Every secret, every mistake, every forgotten promise. You cannot escape them. The game has begun, and you are the piece that completes it. I felt my stomach drop. He wasn't just sending warnings. He was demonstrating control, proving that he could strike anywhere at any time. The stranger observed silently, then said, "This is a psychological play. He wants fear to cloud your judgment. You must remain calm, analyze, and prepare. Reacting emotionally will only give him an advantage. I spent the following days carefully retracing old connections. People who might be involved, locations mentioned in the letters, and events tied to the numbers in the photographs. Each clue added a piece to the puzzle, yet the full picture remained elusive. Late one night, as I reviewed the notes, the stranger spoke again. You're close, but be warned, he will escalate. His next move will test your instincts and courage. Expect confrontation soon. And remember, every person you've interacted with in the past could be part of his plan. I realized that the antagonist's strategy was not just about threats. It was about control, manipulation, and testing my resilience. And I knew that to survive, I had to anticipate his moves, understand his motives, and prepare for the inevitable confrontation. The tension had reached a breaking point. Every day was a careful balancing act, observing, analyzing, anticipating. The stranger who had guided me remained a shadow, quiet but vigilant, constantly reminding me that every move mattered. But deep down, I knew that soon, avoidance wouldn't be enough. I had to face him directly. It happened one rainy evening. The streets glistened under the streetlights, reflecting the storm brewing both outside and inside me. I was returning from a cautious survey of old locations tied to the letters and photographs, when I noticed the figure waiting under a lamppost. It was him, calm, composed, yet radiating the same intensity I had come to fear. I froze momentarily, then continued walking slowly, trying not to show fear. You're careful, he said as I passed, his voice smooth, almost casual. But careful is not enough. You cannot hide from what's coming. I stopped, heart racing, and turned to face him. Why are you doing this? What do you want from me? He smiled faintly, a chilling expression. It's not about what I want. It's about what you need to understand. Your past, your choices, they've shaped this moment. And now it's time you learn the consequences. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I don't understand. Why all of this? Why target me? He stepped closer, the rain slicking his hair to his forehead. Because you were always part of the game, whether you knew it or not. Every person you trusted, every mistake you made, every secret you kept, it's all connected. And I've been waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. The stranger who had guided me appeared behind me, placing a firm hand on my shoulder. Stay calm, observe, don't react emotionally. This is his play. I nodded, though fear and anger churned inside me. I had to keep my wits. This confrontation was not just physical, it was psychological. Every word, every movement, every pause could shift the balance. The man from my past reached into his pocket and handed me a small envelope. Read it carefully. Inside is the next step. Follow it and you may survive. Ignore it and the consequences will be severe. I opened it cautiously. Inside were photographs of my childhood home, the library and other familiar places, along with notes highlighting connections I had overlooked. Names of people I thought irrelevant now carried dangerous implications. It was a roadmap, one that both revealed the depth of his knowledge and threatened to overwhelm me. Do you see now? He said, his voice soft but menacing. I know your history, and I know what it takes to push you to your limits. I swallowed hard. The realization hit me. This was not just about threats or fear. This was a test. Every choice I made, every reaction, was part of a larger puzzle designed to measure me, manipulate me, and perhaps break me. The rain intensified, drumming on the pavement and on my jacket. I felt the weight of every past decision pressing down on me. But amidst the fear, a strange clarity emerged. Knowledge was power, and understanding the enemy, the plan, and my own past was my only chance to survive. The man smiled faintly, as if sensing my resolve. Prepare yourself. The next encounter will demand everything. Courage, intelligence, and patience. And remember, every ally, every familiar face could be part of the plan. Trust no one completely. As he walked away into the rainy night, I stood frozen for a moment, absorbing the encounter. The envelope in my hands was more than a clue. It was a challenge. And I knew that the real test was only beginning. Returning home, I felt the adrenaline slowly subside, replaced by a steely determination. I began organizing all the documents, letters and photographs, creating a detailed map of the past and present, trying to anticipate his moves. Each connection, each person, Each event was a potential piece of the puzzle. The stranger beside me remained silent, but his presence was reassuring. "You've faced him," he said finally. "That is the first victory. But the war is far from over. Be ready for what comes next." I nodded, understanding that survival required more than courage. It required strategy, foresight, and the willingness to confront the past fully. The game had escalated. The first confrontation had set the stage. But the ultimate revelation and danger was still ahead. After the first confrontation, my life felt like it was suspended in a state of heightened awareness. Every detail, every interaction, every sound seemed significant. The man from my past wasn't just a threat. He was a puzzle master, manipulating events with precision, forcing me to confront truths I had long buried. The stranger who had guided me remained close, always observing, silently reinforcing the lessons he had imparted: patience, vigilance, strategy. But even with his presence, I felt the gravity of what was coming. It started with a phone call. A distorted voice, barely audible, whispered a single sentence: "The truth is closer than you think. You've only seen the surface." Chills ran down my spine. I had anticipated challenges, but the voice confirmed it. There was a depth to this plan I hadn't yet uncovered. Later that evening, a package arrived at my door. Inside were documents I had never seen before, legal records, photographs of meetings I had forgotten, and a series of letters that revealed connections I had never considered. One name stood out repeatedly, a name familiar, yet hidden from my consciousness. Someone I had trusted implicitly in my youth, someone whose betrayal I had never anticipated. The stranger spoke quietly, his eyes scanning the documents. "This confirms it. The mastermind has been orchestrating this for years, hiding in plain sight. Every interaction, every event, every connection, it was all part of a plan. And now, you're meant to confront not just him, but the consequences of your own past decisions." I absorbed the reality of his words. The antagonist wasn't a random figure from my past. He was someone deeply intertwined with my life, someone whose presence had been masked by familiarity. And his motive wasn't merely revenge, it was control, manipulation, and testing the very limits of my resilience. Determined, I decided to trace his steps, to uncover how far his reach extended. Each clue I followed revealed layers of planning, locations tied to my childhood, friends I had lost touch with, moments of trust I had taken for granted. Every revelation heightened the stakes, but it also provided me with insight, knowledge I could use to anticipate his next move. That night, as I organized the documents and letters, I discovered a hidden message within one of the envelopes. It was a set of coordinates and a date, specific, precise, and undeniably intentional. The stranger's expression darkened as he read it. "He's challenging you? This is a trap, but also an opportunity. You must prepare carefully. What happens at this location could determine everything." I felt a surge of adrenaline. The confrontation I had anticipated was coming, and now it was no longer abstract. It was tangible, measurable, inevitable. Every preparation, every piece of intelligence, every careful step I had taken would be tested. The next day, I visited the location indicated by the coordinates. It was an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city, abandoned and silent. Shadows stretched across broken windows, and the air carried a faint metallic scent. I could feel the presence of someone watching, assessing, waiting for me to make a move. Inside, I discovered a series of photographs and documents laid out in meticulous order. Each item depicted moments from my life I had believed forgotten. And in the center of the arrangement was a single envelope addressed to me. I opened it, hands trembling. Inside was a letter. "You have survived the first tests, but now comes the real challenge. To move forward, you must confront the truth. Not just mine, but yours. Only by acknowledging every choice, every mistake, every secret, will you gain the power to survive what's coming. Meet me where your story began." The weight of the message pressed heavily on me. It was not only a challenge, but a revelation. The antagonist's motive was deeply personal, intertwined with my own actions and decisions. Survival required more than caution. It required introspection, courage, and a willingness to face truths I had long avoided. Returning home, I felt a strange mix of fear and resolve. The stranger beside me offered no words, only a nod, silently affirming that the next phase of this ordeal would define everything. I realized then that the confrontation ahead would not only test my physical safety, but my emotional resilience, my capacity to understand, and my ability to navigate a web of manipulation and secrets. The game had evolved from threats to revelation, from fear to understanding. And in that understanding lay the key to surviving the ultimate test. The days leading up to the meeting at the coordinates were a blur of preparation, anticipation, and relentless anxiety. Every instinct told me that this encounter would change everything. The stranger who had guided me remained close, his presence both reassuring and a reminder of the stakes. As the appointed day arrived, I approached the location, a decaying warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The sky was overcast, the air heavy with tension. Every step echoed against the cracked concrete floor. Every shadow seemed alive with the anticipation of revelation. At the center of the warehouse, the man from my past waited, his posture calm, his gaze fixed. But this time, there was no envelope, no photographs, no cryptic messages. Just him, the culmination of months of fear, manipulation, and uncertainty. "You made it," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." Most people falter before they reach this point. Most give up. "I didn't give up," I replied, trying to steady my voice. "I needed answers. I need to know why all of this happened." He studied me carefully. "It's simple, really. You and I, our lives have always been connected, though you never realized it. Decisions you made years ago, choices that seemed minor, even inconsequential, set in motion a chain of events that affected me profoundly. I've been waiting for the day you would face this truth." I felt a chill. The pieces of the puzzle, the letters, the photographs, the emails, suddenly began to align. Everything was part of a carefully orchestrated plan, not just to scare me, but to make me understand the consequences of my own actions. "Who are you really?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why all of this?" He stepped closer, the intensity of his gaze unrelenting. "I am someone whose life you touched unknowingly. Someone who was shaped, harmed, or influenced by the ripples of your choices. I am the consequence you never faced." The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. Every friendship I had dismissed, every trust I had betrayed, every secret I had kept, it had not only affected me, but had also set in motion events that now demanded confrontation. "You've orchestrated all of this to teach me a lesson?" I asked, incredulous. "To make me feel fear, doubt, and uncertainty?" "Not to make you feel," he said calmly. "To make you understand, to force you to confront reality, to face the ramifications of your past, and to prepare for what's coming. Fear is only the beginning. Knowledge is the tool. Insight is the key." I took a deep breath, trying to process the revelation. The antagonist wasn't just a stranger or a random figure from my past. He was a mirror, reflecting the consequences of my actions, showing me what I had ignored or forgotten. The stranger who had guided me finally spoke, his voice firm. "Now you know. The question is, what will you do with this knowledge? How will you respond? Every move matters. Every decision counts." I realized then that survival wasn't about running, hiding, or even outsmarting him in the traditional sense. It was about understanding, strategy, and courage. I had to confront not only the antagonist, but also my own past, the choices I had made, and the ripple effects of those choices. The man from my past nodded, as if sensing my realization. "You understand now, and if you act wisely, you can navigate what comes next. But hesitation, pride, or ignorance, they will be your downfall." I felt a mixture of fear, resolve, and clarity. The game had shifted from manipulation to confrontation, from uncertainty to revelation. The ultimate test lay ahead, and I knew that the knowledge I had gained, combined with careful strategy and courage, would be my only chance of surviving what was to come. The warehouse felt alive with tension. Every sound, the dripping of rain from broken windows, the distant hum of city lights, amplified the stakes. I knew this was the moment where preparation, courage, and understanding would all be tested. The man from my past stood at the center, calm and calculated, yet radiating a quiet intensity that reminded me of the danger I faced. The stranger who had guided me remained in the shadows, silently observing, a steadying presence in the chaos of uncertainty. "You've come far," the antagonist said, his voice steady. "But words and plans won't save you now. Only action, understanding, and awareness will." I stepped forward, holding the folder containing every document, photograph, and letter I had collected. My heart pounded, but I felt a strange clarity. For months I had been chasing clues, facing fear, and preparing mentally. Now it was time to act. "Enough games," I said, voice firm. "I know what you want, and I know why. But this ends tonight. He smiled faintly, almost approvingly. Good. You've understood the stakes. But understand this. What you think is an ending may only be the beginning. Choices matter. Actions define outcomes. I took a deep breath, recalling every lesson from the stranger. Observe. Anticipate, strategize. I had traced his patterns, anticipated his moves, and prepared countermeasures. Every location, every letter, every photograph had been mapped. Every connection analyzed. I was ready. The antagonist stepped closer, producing a small envelope. This contains the final piece, he said. It will test your understanding, your courage, and your ability to act under pressure. I opened it carefully. Inside were photographs of people I had ignored or dismissed, names of places tied to my past, and a detailed timeline of events that could be manipulated against me. It was both a challenge and an opportunity, a test of strategy and emotional intelligence. I understand, I said quietly. You want me to confront not just you, but the consequences of my own actions. To navigate this web of connections and choices. Exactly, he replied. And your response now will determine everything. The final confrontation wasn't physical. It was a game of wits, strategy, and emotional mastery. Using the knowledge I had gained, I anticipated his manipulations, countered his psychological tactics, and navigated the maze of past connections. Each decision I made neutralized a potential threat, turning his plan against him without direct confrontation. Hours passed. The rain continued outside, but inside the warehouse, time seemed suspended. Every revelation, every choice, every careful move brought me closer to the resolution I had sought for months. Finally, the antagonist paused. His eyes met mine, and for a moment there was no hostility, only acknowledgement. You've learned well, he said. Few would have reached this point. You faced fear, understood manipulation, and confronted your past. The game is no longer mine to control. I nodded, feeling the weight of months of fear. Tension and preparation lift slightly. The confrontation had ended, not with violence, but with understanding, strategy, and mastery over the circumstances that had once threatened to consume me. The stranger stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. You did it. You faced the challenge, confronted your past, and survived. Remember this. Knowledge, preparation, and courage are your greatest allies. The antagonist turned and walked toward the exit, pausing to glance back one final time. This isn't the end of the world, but it is the end of this chapter. Learn from it. Live wisely. As he disappeared into the rainy night, I felt a profound sense of relief and clarity. The months of fear, manipulation, and psychological torment had reached their conclusion. I had survived not just because of strategy, but because I had confronted the truths of my past, anticipated the moves of my adversary, and acted with courage and intelligence. Returning home, I sat quietly, reflecting on everything that had transpired. The stranger remained a silent guardian, a reminder that guidance, wisdom, and careful planning are invaluable. I realized that life was a series of choices and consequences, and survival, both physical and emotional, depended on understanding them deeply. The ordeal had changed me. I was no longer the person who had cowered in fear or reacted impulsively. I was stronger, wiser, and aware of the intricate web of cause and effect that shaped every aspect of life. And as the rain subsided and the first rays of dawn illuminated the city, I knew this chapter had ended, but the lessons, the awareness, and the resilience I had gained would stay with me forever. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. Sometimes life teaches us lessons in the most unexpected ways, and the truth hidden behind moments like these can change everything. If this story made you think, if it made you feel something, don't leave without subscribing. Your support helps us bring more real stories, deeper emotions, and powerful life lessons straight to you. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder that life is bigger than what we see and that every struggle has a purpose. Leave a comment below and tell me what part of the story touched you the most. I'd love to read your thoughts. Remember, every ending is just the beginning of another chapter. I'll see you in the next story. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming.